Welcome to this lab on port security. In this lab, we have to configure port security on our switch. In a typical wired Ethernet network, port security is disabled by default. And what happens in this case is that any user can plug in his PC to the main switch and access the switch. To protect the switch from illegitimate users, we can ensure a basic level of security to limit the number of MAC addresses that can be allowed on a certain port. And for that purpose, we implement port security. So in this example, we have one switch here, switch 0 connected to three hubs, and each hub is connected to two PCs. Now we have to achieve three objectives in this lab. The first one is to use just one port security command on gigabit Ethernet 1/0/1. Now, and we have to answer these questions. By default, how many MAC addresses are permitted? So that we will check. Then we have to verify that only the first host is allowed to access that port. Then what happens when the second host sends traffic into the network? We have to see the behavior of the switch when a second host tries to send traffic to our network. Is the first host's MAC address written to the running configuration? So we will check that as well. What happens when the switch is power cycled? So in this case, we will first save our configuration and then power off our switch and then power it on again. Second question is enable port security on gigabit Ethernet 103 and automatically add the MAC address to the running config. In this case, we will see what happens when the second host sends traffic and what happens when the switch is power cycled. But in this case, we will not save the configuration. Then the third part of this tutorial will be to enable port security on gigabit Ethernet 104 by manually specifying PC5's MAC address. Now here we will drop the other traffic which will come after. So in this case, whenever we have traffic coming uh, from an undesired MAC address, we will drop that traffic and send log messages. Now we'll proceed with part one of this tutorial. The first part is to use just one port security command on gigabit Ethernet 101 and then answer the following questions. So I will go to my Word document which I have prepared containing all the commands, and we'll start with the switch. Go to CLI and rename, first of all, rename the switch. The host name switch 0 according to the name of the switch given here. Now I will configure my interface 101. Here I will write switch port question mark to check my options, and I have port security as an option. So port security. We get a command rejected message. The interface is a dynamic port. That is because we first have to make this a user. We have to make this an access port. So we write switch port mode access, and after that we can use port security command. Now port security is enabled on this interface, on this port, whatever you want to call it. Now we write show, we come out of this config and we now write show port security. So as you can see, As you can see, this is the port we configured. The maximum addresses, MAC addresses that we can have on this is one. So by default, you can only have one MAC address on any port. And current address is zero because it hasn't learned any of the addresses till now. There is no security violation count right now, and if there is, then the port will be shut down. Also, let's go and check one more thing in this. Let's write show port security address. There is no address right now because the port hasn't learned any addresses yet. Now I'm going to go to any, or I'm going to go to this PC which is connected on this port. So 101 has a hub connected, and then there are two PCs, PC1 and PC2 connected to this. I'm going to go to PC1. Now these PCs are connected, are being allocated IP addresses using DHCP. So I'll just go to desktop command prompt, and I will write ipconfig and ipconfig all. Now this is the MAC address over here. Now in order for the switch to learn this PC's IP address, I'm going to write ipconfig renew. So this will make the PC again get a IP address, and the switch will come to know about this. So I type ipconfig space slash renew, and as you can see, that is still the same MAC address. I go to my switch now and type show port security. In port security address, you can see that this MAC address is now being shown. And let's check show port security. In this, there is already one address in the current address now. The maximum we can have is also one. Now I'll go to the second PC and try to do the same thing. I'll go to command prompt and I'll ipconfig all first to check what is the IP, what is the MAC address. It's 00C0 dot 4 times 2 dot 4 times 2. I'll renew this thing, and as you can see, it's taking some time. DHCP request failed. Now we'll also see a message in our switch, that is that the line protocol on interface 101 changed state to down. So our port has gone down because as you can see, it's a security violation. We tried to let more than one MAC address access the port, and that's why it has shut down. Now if we check show port security address, there is no address in this right now because it's been shut down. And there's one more command which will help us see things better, and that command is show port security interface G1 slash 0 slash 1. In this, you can see the last known address VLAN was 00C0 dot 4 times 2 dot 4 times 2 colon 1. So this is the second PC's MAC address. So the moment this was discovered, the port got disabled. Now to come out of this, to get our port back up. So, okay, before that, let's see if we have answered some of these questions. By default, how many MAC addresses are permitted? Only one. Verify that only the first host is allowed. Yes, only the first host was allowed. The moment we tried to uh, use a second host, the port was shut down. So what happens when the second host sends traffic into the network? Well, the port gets shut down. There's a violation in the policy. Then is the first host's MAC address written to the running configuration? Now we need to check that, but before doing that, we'll have to again have to shut the switch and no shut it. So shut. Oops, that's a wrong command. We don't have to shut the switch. We have to shut the interface, the port. So I go to my switch and there I write. I go to config. I go to my interface, which is G101. I write no shut and then sorry. I first write shut and then no shut. This will bring it up. As you can see, it's getting up again. And now I will go to my PC1, go to desktop and IP config renew. So this is the physical address renew. This failed because there is one IP address which this still remembers. So I'll have to go and wait for this to get back up. Okay, that is done. Now I can go to my command prompt and try to IP config renew. Okay, that is done. Now you can see that I get a MAC address having ones. So let's go to the switch and check show port security address. So that's the MAC address right there, and that's our last source address, which is 00C0.41.41. So as we can see, okay, now one more thing to check was that whether this thing is in our running configuration. So show run, and you can see that it is not there. The MAC address of PC1 is not given over here. So that answers our question. Now we'll do the second part. Here we have to enable port security on gigabit Ethernet 1/0/3 and automatically add the MAC address to the running configuration. So I'm going to go to my switch here and type the following commands. First, I will go to config interface G103, make this a switch port mode access switch port security switch port security, and write here MAC address sticky. This will ensure that one MAC address gets set to our port, and that won't change. Now I'll end and show port security interface G1F. Let's show port security. As you can see, there is no address on that Ethernet right now. Then I'll write int G103. So the port hasn't learned any address till now. Also, I'll do show run, and here you can see that there's no address in MAC address sticky. Now I'll go to PC3 and I will go to command prompt and write IP config/renew. Then I will go to my switch and again check my port security. And now it has learned the MAC address for PC3. We'll check show run. It has learned the address of PC3. Now I'll do the same thing from PC4. IP config/renew. This will throw a DHCP request timed error. And when I go to my switch, my port security will show that the last source address was of PC4. There's one sticky MAC. one sticky MAC address, and there is a security violation count of 1. If I just write show port security, uh, you can see that there is one current address and one security violation. The current address is the sticky address. So what happens when the second host sends traffic? Well, nothing. The sticky address stays the same, but the port goes down.